All right, this problem comes from tonight's homework, and what we want to do here is we want to simplify this radical, the square root of 486 times x to the fifth. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to split this first up into square root of 486 times the square root of x to the fifth. That way I'm just going to deal with the constants first, and then I'll deal with the variables next. So what I'm looking for here is I want to split up my 486 into a product of two numbers, and I want one of those to be a perfect square. So I'm not very good with knowing my factors, my perfect square factors of 486. So I'm going to go to the calculator, which is perfectly fine, and I'm going to see if I can find what those perfect square factors are. So let's start with here. What I'll do is I'll list the first few here. I've got 1, 4, 9, and we'll do 16. Those are my first four perfect squares. Obviously, everything's divisible by 1, so that's not very helpful. But let's go through those three. So I take 486 and I divide it by 4, and that one doesn't work. So let's cross this guy off. And let's do next 486 divided by 9. And that one works. So let's actually just go with that one. So that means that 9 times 54 is 486. So I can split up the square root of 486 into the square root of 9 times 54. And this is times the square root of my largest perfect square that goes into x to the fifth is x to the fourth. So this becomes x to the fourth times x. So let's see, I'm going to split this up into the square root of 9 times the square root of 54 times the square root of x to the fourth times the square root of x. All of this, remember, is multiplication. I can rearrange things and move them around any way I like. I know what the square root of 9 is, and I know what the square root of x to the fourth is. So let's fill those in. This becomes 3 times the square root of 54 times the square root of x to the fourth is x squared times the square root of x. Then what I'm going to do is, like I said, I can rearrange all this stuff since this is multiplication. So I'm going to move my x squared in between the 3 and the root 54. So let's see, what I have here then is 3x squared times the square root of 54x. Now, it might appear that I'm done. However, I must remember to check what's left inside this radical. I always want to ask myself, are there any perfect square factors in this remaining radical? And the answer here is yes. Hopefully you're seeing that 54 can be written as 9 times 6, and we know that 9 is a perfect square, so I can continue to simplify this thing further. So we got to do that. Let's rewrite this then as I'm going to keep my 3x squared, and I can rewrite the square root of 54x as the square root of 9 times 6 times x. And let's split out this square root of 9. So I've got 3x squared times the square root of 9 times the square root of 6x. I know what the square root of 9 is. So I have 3x squared times 3. Remember, all of this is multiplication here between every single factor. And then this is times root 6x. So let's combine. Remember, again, all of this is multiplication. So I can move this 3 and multiply it with this 3 to simplify this thing even further. And my final answer here will be 9, 3 times 3, x squared times the square root of 6x. Now, nothing inside of here has any perfect square factors, and I am done with this one.